to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast, the most listened to daily Miami Dolphins podcast on the internet.
Miami's got the Dolphins, the greatest of all.
Come on, Dolphins fans. Time to fins up.
We're in the air, we're on the ground, we're always in control. And when you say Miami, you're talking Super Bowl. Cause we're the Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one. Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins, Miami Dolphins number one.
Good evening, Miami Dolphins fans. How are you today? And thank you for listening to the DolphinsTalk.com podcast on this Wednesday, April the 30th. I am your host, Mike Oliva, joined by a very special guest today, Scott Wright, who covers Oklahoma State for The Oklahoman. And you can read his work at theoklahoman.com and follow him on Twitter or X at ScottWrightOK. Scott, how you doing today?
Mike, I'm good. Thank you for having me on here, man.
Yeah, we're going to talk a little Ollie Gordon, who was selected by the Miami Dolphins this past weekend, round 6, pick 179, and talk about what you know about him after watching him in his 3 seasons at Oklahoma State. But before we get to that, a little bit of housekeeping I have to do. The sponsor of today's show, Caneswear. Please go to the website caneswear.com for the very best Miami Dolphins apparel on the internet. They are also I cannot speak today. They're also located at 2655 South University Drive in Davie, Florida. Caneswear has it all. They have stuff for the Dolphins. They have stuff for the Florida Panthers, Miami Heat, Miami Marlins, and of course the Miami Hurricanes as well. Caneswear.com, caneswear.com. All right, Scott. Ollie Gordon selected by the Dolphins. Before we get into Ollie the player, he was in college for 3 years. And was there any talk of him returning to Oklahoma State? And was he one of the big NIL guys at Oklahoma State? I would think coming off his 2023 season, which was outstanding, and then last year, not quite as good, which we'll get into. Was there any talk of him returning? And how was he doing NIL-wise there? I would have to assume it was halfway decent.
Yeah, he was doing okay after the 2023 season. That was kind of a breaking point for Oklahoma State, where they were really finally getting into, paying out some bigger contracts for some of these guys in the NIL market. But they knew going into that year or coming out of 2023 that they were going to have to open up the checkbook to keep him around. They knew that people were going to be trying to get him in the transfer portal, get him somewhere else, and offering big bucks to do it. So they had to do a little more than they were comfortable with, probably, to get him to stick around for 2024. As far as sticking around again for 2025, that was never really discussed. It was kind of always anticipated that he was gone from the moment that season ended. So no big surprise to see him going into the NFL and getting his shot with Miami.
Yep, and he went in round 6, like I said, pick 179. How did he get into the draft? Is that where you think, or what you heard, where you thought he might go, or were you hearing like a little bit earlier, maybe even like a little bit later, or is that like the general area you thought, he's probably going to get picked there?
Most of the stuff that you saw had him somewhere on day 3. It was unclear exactly where he might fall, but obviously, he's a unique type of back in that he goes to the combine, runs a 4.61. Some people are just going to be turned off by that. They don't want even a big back. They don't want a 4.6 guy. They would rather have a smaller, faster guy and take their chances. But so that closed some doors for him, I think, in some of the 4th, 5th round area. And you were waiting to see which program or which franchise was going to be willing to take that chance and give him a shot based on his production. And so I think 5th, 6th round was kind of what a lot of people around here were expecting.
Yeah, and you talk about production. Now, I watch a ton of college football. I know all of our listeners don't. So I was on Ollie Gordon before it was cool. And in 2023, this guy was all production. 6.1 yards per carry, 1,700 plus rushing yards, 21 rushing touchdowns, 1 more receiving. After watching him as a freshman, where he saw limited time, did he just surprise everyone as a sophomore, or did you guys know 1 year prior, this kid's the real deal, he just needs more of an opportunity?
It certainly felt that way to a lot of us who covered the program after seeing some of the things he did as a freshman, particularly the last home game that year. It was a rainy day, and they decided to give him about 20 carries. I don't remember the exact number now, but November of 22, and you saw him go for over 100 yards, first time in his career, and you really saw the type of big play potential that he had, the things that he could do when he gets downhill, all that kind of stuff, and so. Going into 23, a lot of us who covered the program really thought this was going to be his opportunity to shine. And then the way those first three games went, the team was rotating quarterbacks, three quarterback system that they had going at that time. And they were rotating their running backs with those guys. Ollie had 19 carries in the first three games that season. And going into game 4, they were finally like, okay, we need to have an identity on offense. So we're picking a quarterback and we're sticking Ollie back there at the back of the backfield, and we're just going to give the ball to him. And that's when he went nuts from that point on and was just wildly impressive. That's when whenever I bring up the 4.6 40 that he ran, I always encourage people to go look at his tape, because he's a guy that's got competitive speed, and you can go watch him, and he runs stride for stride with DBs that are going to go run a 4.3 in the 40, and guys do not run him down from behind. It's very rare that you'll see him get caught from behind. So that's why that's what I caution people who are concerned about that 4.6. This guy, when he gets into open field, can really stride and is a faster back than you anticipate.
Yeah, and he's also one of those guys who, and this won't be the case in Miami, where the more he gets the ball as the game goes on, it seems like the better he gets is everyone around him slowing down, getting tired, third, fourth quarter. It seems like he hasn't lost a step. Third, fourth quarter, carry 18, carry 19, carry 20. He's just as good as he was carry 1. Now, in the NFL, that's probably not going to be the case unless something happens, but he's that type of guy, right?
Yeah, he absolutely is. You saw that all through 2023. And then in 2024, when they could really establish the run, you saw that then as well. Obviously, a lot of issues that compounded for that offense last fall that prevented them from really establishing him and getting him going the same way as they did in 2023. But you do see that from him being a guy that in the fourth quarter was incredibly strong and incredibly fast still, and could really still produce. So, like I said, at Miami, that's not going to be the real opportunity for him unless things have gone a little bit bad for some of the other dudes back there.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we'll talk more about his fit, but I really like the way he fits in that backfield.
Yep. And so in 2023, he was named the Big 12 Offensive Player of the Year. After it's done, he won the Walker Award for the best running back in the country. He's on cloud 9. He's like one of the favorites for the Heisman heading in 2024. And then there's the off the field incident, which you're there and you're around the players. And like after that incident, did he change as a person? Was he the same guy in your eyes from what you saw, obviously? And it seemed like to me the incident was there, but the head coach, for things he said, like all the heat shifted to Mike Gundy. Yeah. He kind of took some off of the player, which is rare, but as an outsider, am I right with that?
You absolutely are. As far as Ollie, you sensed a definite. It wasn't a major change, but it was a level of awareness that
He was humbled a little.
he was humbled a little. He realized he wasn't invincible. And I think that was really important for him at that point in his career, because everything was going right throughout all of 2023 and heading into 24. As you mentioned, he's being talked about in the Heisman. I mean, some of the early draft projections had him sneaking into the first round back then. If you go back to right after the 24 draft. So everything was going well. And then you have that bump in the road right there in early July. I was there at Big 12 Media Days last summer when, he didn't have to show up. He could have hidden and waited until August to talk to us. And that would have been, I think, the wrong decision, because then you're bringing it all back up again in August, whereas he addressed it right out of the gate there in July. and put it behind him. But he had the right attitude. That Big 12 media days, they show up at 8 a.m. and start doing things with ESPN or Fox or whoever else is there, and they don't finish till 3 p.m. And it was the same questions over and over again. And he never never showed frustration by answering the same questions over and over again. He handled it all incredibly well. And then, as you mentioned, Mike Gundy did take some heat off of him, I think unintentionally, but
unintentionally, yes, I would say.
Yeah.
And for people who might not know, why don't you explain what the off the field incident was? Just so they're aware.
So it was just one night, early July. He got pulled over and was arrested for suspicion of DUI. His blood alcohol was just barely over the legal limit for someone who's 21. He, of course, was only 20 at the time. So any alcohol in your system at that point is too much. So So and then that was one of the issues with Mike Gundy's comments about his blood alcohol level was that it wasn't very much, but for a 20-year-old, it was obviously too much.
Yeah, and he did take the heat off, because when Mike Gundy said this thing, I remember he's on Pat McAfee the next day. He's on all these shows. They're talking to Mike Gundy. It's like, well, it was really Ollie Gordon, but everyone's talking about like Mike Gundy and his thought process when it comes to drunk driving, which I guess as the player, you kind of appreciate your coach. But again, I don't think that was intentional. It just happened because Mike is kind of Mike at the end of the day for people who kind of know who he is. And so that made an interesting situation even more interesting. Now, 2024, we spoke about 2023. This guy's on cloud nine, even with the off the field incident. And correct me if I'm wrong, heading into 2024, Oklahoma State expectations were sky high. Didn't they return like 19 or 22 starters or some crazy number? Like they returned their entire offensive line. They returned like their quarterback, I believe, and everyone was picking them, possible chance for the playoffs if they win the conference, this, that. And 2024 went terribly wrong from the beginning. What happened, not just with him, but with Oklahoma State?
Oh my, that is the $1 million question that I spent weeks and weeks and weeks trying to answer last fall. But the short version is, they did return Alan Bowman at quarterback. He had been a very efficient and effective quarterback in 2023.
And he was like 26, 27, wasn't he? He's like an older guy.
20. He was young for how many years he had been in college. It was his 7th year of college.
Seventh year of college, that's what it was.
25 at the time, but a 7th year senior. But so he gets off to a rough start. Bowman does, and they teams just start packing the box. They can't throw the ball well enough to open things up and get some extra running room. The offensive line, for whatever reason, as you mentioned, they were all back, and they were all veterans. They were all 6th-year seniors, and they couldn't open holes for whatever reason. It was all very, very difficult to try to break down from somebody who watched the team all of 2023 and saw all the same dudes not being able to do anything close to what they had done the year before. It was, it was really confusing and bizarre scenario to follow, because they did 19, 20 starters overall, 10 on offense. They had a new tight end. That was legitimately the only spot that they had to fill in the starting lineup on the offensive side of the ball. So to see them fall off the way they did, there were a lot of little things that just contributed to it. And, it was a frustrating year for Ollie, and that was a learning process for him, because he is an incredibly competitive kid, and that will get to him from time to time when things aren't going well. You'd see, trash talk across the line of scrimmage after plays and those sorts of things. And, it didn't get out of hand too very many times where he was getting penalties and things like that. But definitely something that was a learning process for him, and understanding that you've got to let some of that stuff go more often.
Yeah, and so really, it was a problem with the entire offense, not just Ollie. It was lack of a passing game. Offensive line with 5 starters back, everyone thought it'd be fine. It wasn't fine. And when you can't pass the ball and your offensive line isn't having a great season, it's tough to run the ball with any success, because teams are zeroing in on the guy who was the Heisman favorite, who won the Walker Award, who was the Big 12 offensive player. Like, we got to stop him, and they got nothing else. So that was essentially part of it. And like, even his numbers, I was looking for a down year. Good Lord, he still scored like 13 touchdowns, just under 100 yards, or just under 1,000 yards, and he still was like 4.6 yards a carry, which for some backs, that's like, hey, that's great. He scored 13, I'm at 4.6. But for where he was, it's like, well, he's not Superman. Now he's Clark Kent.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really how it felt, when he finally started breaking through and getting some 100-yard games again here and there. It was like,
Everyone's
oh
waiting for
yeah,
everyone's waiting for the floodgates to open. Where he has a
exactly.
200-yard game and a 3 touchdown game. It just
Yeah.
never really came.
No, no, just never did, and and he maintained his focus throughout the whole thing, and he wanted to be on the field all the way till the end. This was a 3-9 team, didn't win a Big 12 game, and still at the end of the year, he was the guy that wanted to be out there because that's the kind of competitor that he is.
Two aspects of his game which are going to come into focus as any running back moves to the NFL: receiver out of the backfield, and how is he in pass protection? Can you shed any light on that?
Yeah, now he did get a lot of opportunities as a pass blocker and understands the concepts fairly well. Obviously, at his size, he's probably going to be over 230. He slimmed down a bit for the combine and pro day, but I think he'll be over 230 probably in the fall. And he can hold his own as a blocker back there. Now it's going to be different, obviously, at the NFL level. The type of guys that are coming flying at you back there that you've got to brace for, but he understands the concepts well, and as a pass catcher, he was a very reliable guy. That was something that when teams started kind of figuring him out during the 23 season, that was something that they really started working in more heavily, and he ended up having some really important catches out of the backfield. Was really reliable, good hands. So in those aspects, I think that he is going to be able to contribute and can be a guy that whatever situation you need to put him in, he can go out there and help the team in whatever way is needed.
Yeah, and now in Miami, he joins a backfield, which they've spent some draft picks in recent years on running backs. Previous to the past 3 years, they did not invest in the running back position. They signed guys. They never really drafted anyone. Then 2 years ago, they drafted Achan out of Texas A&M in round 3, and he is the lead back. Then last year, they traded a 4th-round pick to move up in round 3, and they selected Jalen Wright out of Tennessee. Didn't really play much last year as a rookie, so people have high hopes for him, but we don't really know. And those two are speed guys, pure speed guys. Ollie Gordon's cut from a different cloth. And it's nice to have that type of back to complement what you got with the speed guys. And how you think Miami's going to use them? It was a little bit of a surprise because Mike McDaniel wants speed. Like, he don't want size. He just loves speed. So many people think this is a pick by the general manager, Chris Greer, who played the trump card. You know what? We tried it your way for a couple of years. We need some bulk. We need some physicality. And we're going to take a larger back. Because they had one a few years ago, and they just let him go. And he signed with the Packers, and he actually played well. And I think this is like, okay, we got to get a compliment. How do you think he's going to fit in Miami with that offense wide open with all the speed?
I'll say this: it's interesting for me to hear you, as someone who follows the program, say that about potentially being a GM move to get the pick. Because obviously, me not knowing, I'm obviously familiar with the Dolphins and McDaniel's desire for speed, and so as I saw it happen, I was like, well, they obviously want somebody that's got some size to handle some certain situations. They see a role for him, So maybe that, as an uninformed guy, that was what I thought was kind of exciting for Ollie in that regard, because it seemed like a place where there would be a little bit of a role for him. So however it shakes out, I think that he's a good compliment because, like I said, you can stick him out there on a 3rd down and feel comfortable. You can get him in on a 1st or 2nd down and feel comfortable with whatever you're going to run. So I think that you can find a role for a guy like that. It's just a matter of balancing, the use of the speed guys with the guy that's more of your downhill power guy. And I think that he is an ideal guy for that because of his versatility and because of his power. I think that he can carve out a nice little spot for himself in that backfield.
Yep. A couple more questions. I'll let you go. And this has nothing to do with Ollie. This is about Oklahoma State. Because I love that sport. And I'm a big fan of college football. And with all the chaos and sometimes nonsense that takes place in college football, I got questions for you. Oklahoma State, since Oklahoma went to the SEC, amongst the fan base at least, has the rivalry even been ramped up? Like, how dare you leave us and you go to the, like, are the fans even more at each other's throats? Because Oklahoma State in that relationship is little brother. And are they like a more pissed off little brother than they were before, or is it kind of still the same? They're just in the SEC, out of sight, out of mind.
There's a little bit of everything. Honestly, it's been very interesting to watch from my perspective because initially there was a lot of how dare you do this. Because you go back a decade or so when there was some other conference realignment, there was all this talk that OU and OSU needed to stick together no matter what. Needed to be a pair, and then obviously this happened and in kind of secret and came out of nowhere. So initially there was some of that. There was also a lot of good riddance from the Oklahoma State fan base. So
Yeah.
there was definitely that aspect, and now, especially now that the game isn't being played in football, all the other sports just about have put it on the schedule as a non-conference game, but football is it's still a ways down the line if it ever happens again. So it's taken on a very different aspect to the rivalry, but there's still plenty of bad blood between those two fan bases.
Yeah, and that's a shame that they don't play every year because that's one of those games that fans get into, even if you don't like live in the air like me. But Oklahoma State, throw the records out. I don't care who's what. They're going to just fight it to the end. And they've had some classic matchups, and the fact they're not playing is one of the. I mean, they're all making money in college football, but that's the part they've lost. And I hope that does. I mean, it's not going to hurt them in the long run because they're making so much money. But as a fan, that's one aspect that's been lost. All these schools who are not in the SEC and who are not in the Big Ten want to get in those conferences, even if they won't say it publicly. Has there been any rumors with Oklahoma State? Has there been people reaching out from those two conferences, or has it been kind of quiet on that front?
As far as anything that's been known publicly, it's been very quiet. Now, I do think that leadership at Oklahoma State understands the importance not only of just their status within the Big 12, because when if one of those leagues decides they want to expand, you want to be at the front of the line in the Big 12.
You want to see the table. Yep.
Yes, exactly. And so they understand their need to be prominent within the league, and also to build relationships so that maybe when the time comes for those phone calls that you've built that relationship already, and it's not so much of a learning process. So I do think the Oklahoma State leadership understands that and understands the need to position themselves properly for whatever might happen next, because something else is going to happen.
It's going to happen.
Yeah,
it's going to happen.
No matter what and when.
Yeah, and I always feel, at least, I think if I'm in the ACC and if I'm in the Big 12, the people who run the conferences, they should be talking all the time, because if they're both strong, there's a chance for survival. If one of them dies off, like the ACC's got a bunch of schools who are just dying to bolt. If one of those conferences dies off, the Big 12 and the SEC are going to be so strong that even if the ACC just sort of splinters away and becomes like the AAU conference or a MAC conference, the Big 12 still hurt. They both need to be strong somehow, some way. So there's 4 viable conferences. But something is going to happen because there's just so much money on the table that it's just a matter of when the SEC and the Big 10 goes, all right, we want more money. Let's see, North Carolina, you're with us. Florida State, you're with them. And they just sit at a table like a fantasy draft and break up these last conferences. Last question, I'll let you go. 3-9 season last year. No, for a lot of programs, that would put your head coach, even if he's loved, not on the hot seat, but maybe on the hot seat. What's his status in Oklahoma State? That's football's religion out there. They don't want 3-9 too often. They might put up with it once. They ain't going to put up with it twice. So what's the outlook in 2025? How safe is he?
He's not, my gunny is not as safe as he was because there was some uproar within from the Oklahoma State leadership. He ended up with a new contract that really reduced his buyout, which was the big thing that honestly, probably the only thing that saved him last offseason. Had the buyout been something a little bit more affordable, he might be out the door already. But now they renegotiate the contract. They reduce the buyout so that the school has a little bit better power should something like this happen again. That said, he got rid of his entire offensive defensive staff, new coordinators.
Wow.
Let those guys bring in all new assistants. They kept a couple of special teams guys and some analysts down the line. That was it. So and then of course with that, now they had a huge graduating class. Plus, they had some guys go in the portal and have really rebuilt. It's going to be nearly half of the 105-man roster by the time this is all said and done will be new guys. So they've definitely
That's
cleaned
rough.
house.
That's rough.
It's pretty wild. It's been crazy to cover it. But as far as how good they're going to be, I have no clue because there's so many new guys,
Yeah, that's
guys
a
from
lot
all
of
different
guys.
programs. It's you feel like they've got to be better than they were a year ago. I know they like what they've got at quarterback and running back, and the defense they feel is coming together under Todd Grantham, a guy that spent some time in the NFL. So they like what they've got, but it's really hard to project what a team is going to be when you have that much turnover.
Yeah, yeah, that's a lot of turnover. And I'll say this because I'm a Syracuse guy, and we learned last year if you get a quarterback, you're going to win.
Right?
The rest of the team matters. Don't get me wrong, but if you got an A-level quarterback, you're going to win. And if they get the quarterback right, they're going to be fine. But yeah, that's very interesting. Scott, thanks so much for a few moments of your time tonight. Be sure to read the work of Scott Wright, who covers Oklahoma State at The Oklahoman, at theoklahoman.com. You can follow him on social media, Twitter, X, at Scott Wright OK. Scott, thanks so much. And if Ollie Gordon blows up, maybe we'll be talking to you again down the road if he starts becoming a great NFL running back.
Absolutely. Anytime, Mike. I appreciate you having me.
Yep, thank you. Hey guys, Mike here from DolphinsTalk.com. Just want to thank you for watching this video today. Please be sure to like and subscribe to this video. And also just thank you in general. I know you have a lot of other podcast options out there these days, whether it's with the Miami Dolphins or about the Miami Dolphins and with non-Miami Dolphins podcast stuff like true crime, politics, NBA, Major League Baseball. We do appreciate the support you guys provide us, and we do thank you for watching our content. We appreciate it more than you'll ever know. So thank you so much. Just want to say thank you, thank you, thank you. And also, don't forget to sign up for our Patreon service. Go to patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. And for just $3 a month, you will get more Miami Dolphins coverage and shows. Patreon.com/DolphinsTalk. Thank you again, and everyone have a great day.